Okay, I tell you what, while Jason thinks of some more jokes, let's start with another esteemed, and I can say that without a doubt, journalist from KHDK. Lisa Zigman starts us off with a look at the St. Louis County executive race.
It started. Race between Charlie Dooley and Steve Stenger quickly disintegrated.
How dare you say nothing's happening in North County?
Dare I mention Jamestown Mall? Okay. If you want to talk about economic development, the first thing that we need to do is bring economic development to all areas of the county.
Other candidates, 2 Republicans and a Constitution candidate, spoke as well, but most in the overflow crowd reacted to Dooley and Stenger, especially regarding the embezzlement of $3.5 million by a high-ranking official at the county health department.
We had audits every single year. Every year. The council voted on all the budgetary processes, and nobody caught it.
So we don't need an audit and spend another $95,000 to prove that you mismanaged county government.
And again, thanks to Lisa Zigman from my home base, KSDK News Channel 5, for letting us use that report to start us off tonight. Okay, Jason, Joe, Chris, let's break it down. Who's in this race? I think we know that. What's the status of this race? It seems like it's been a little nasty.
Yes, extremely nasty. A lot of nasty ads, which is unusual for an internal primary. Usually candidates who are of the same party try to be at least somewhat nice. I mean, there's some precedent for this nastiness, like 20 years ago. But this is very unusual to see Charlie Dooley and Steve Stenger. Stenger's on the council, Charlie's the incumbent, and they can't really stand each other right now. If you notice at the forum that Lisa's clip was taken out, they're sitting right next to each other and they never looked at each other. It's gotten that bad. Both of them feel that the other one is just taking things too far. But I think for the average voter, what they want to know is what their stands are on a number of issues. And actually on many of the issues, their stands are very similar.
Is there a place where here's a few things. Let's see. Let's think of, we're going to talk about the transportation tax later tonight, but I believe they both support it.
They're both for it, although Stenger says he's reluctantly for it.
There are several things on the ballot. Right to bear arms is being
they're both against it.
They're both against that. What do they disagree on? City-county merger. They both kind of don't talk about.
Well, they both say it's up to the people, and they're both kind of soft-pedaling that. The main thing that they disagree on, I would say, was how they believe the county executive should be running county government. Stenger claims that Dooley has just let too many things go on his watch. You know, Stenger's theme is 10 years is enough, or Dooley has taken that same theme and saying, I have the experience, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and doesn't know what he doesn't know. I mean, those are exact words. So Stenger contends that the county executive needs to be more hands-on. He's contending, he's a lawyer and an accountant, and is promising if he's elected that the first 100 days he's going to do an audit of all county government. Whereas Dooley says, well, look, I've put things on the right track. I've helped lead where we've gotten some more major businesses. We've redone Highway 40. We've done various infrastructure projects that he says is putting the county on the cusp of more growth. So it's basically Dooley saying we're doing things right, and Stenger saying no, we're not. And then you've got the Republicans in the wings, and Rick Stream is saying, who is probably the leading Republican, saying this is a mess, but I'll wait till the primary's over, and then I'm going to propose how to fix it.
Okay, hold your thought on the Republican side for 1 second.
Well, I've been following the council now for 3 years, and anybody who has been following the council, which is probably 3 or 4 people, another joke, knew that this was going to be incredibly nasty.
They haven't gotten along
while
doing the county's business.
They didn't get along, since 2011 when the county executive proposed a budget that shut down half of the parks. Stenger was one of the people that led the opposition to that. And ever since then, it's been downhill, and it's always been assumed that Stenger was going to run for county executive since then. I think everybody in the St. Louis area has probably seen the ads by now because they play on KSDK every 10 seconds, mainly Stanger's, because I think his ad buys are a little bit bigger as far as volume at this point.
Yeah. Stanger has actually raised slightly more money, and he's also put in a little bit of his own. And Stanger has all this labor money,
So,
which is subtext here.
But I think that the ads that have gotten the most attention are Dooley's ads because, I mean, beyond comparing Stanger to Mitt Romney in his first ad for a time not releasing his state tax returns, although he did release his state tax returns, making the ad pretty much moot after the
yeah,
fact.
he'd given us the state.
And
Yeah.
there's other things as well, as Chris will say.
Yeah, as far as the nastiness of this campaign, I think this is sort of what happens when you have a primary where there aren't a lot of substantive differences between the candidates. There aren't a lot of policy differences. So you get into debates about debates, and you get into debates about
Abortion.
about tax returns and abortion, which as Jason has talked about, the county executive doesn't have a whole lot of a role in that.
Yeah, and especially like on the city-county merger thing. I'm a resident of the city of St. Louis. The merger or reentry or consolidation would impact my life a lot, but I haven't heard either candidate say why being part of St. Louis County would make my life better if that would occur. I mean, those are the types of things, even though I'm not going to vote in this election because I don't live there, I want to know about, and this is not getting really heard because all of this fluff is basically taking center stage.
There are other issues that are not being talked about, would you say? Is that fair?
Yes, I think that's fair to some degree because Dooley has mentioned this, and he's somewhat right, is that St. Louis County, aside from being the largest entity in the state, has also matured. The population has been the same, more or less, for about 20 years. There's parts of St. Louis County that aren't in good shape. I mean, 40 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case, but it's true now. So St. Louis County is facing some of the same urban issues, maybe to a lesser extent,
Well,
but
poverty's
still,
on the rise. We've learned on this show here. And
Correct.
Smaller percentage, but there are more poor people in
Oh
St.
yeah,
Louis
if you
County
go
than
if
there
you
are
go
in
to
St. Louis
parts
City.
of North St. Louis County, there's some really nice municipalities there, but there are some which are in abject poverty and need some real help. I don't know what the county's role in that is, but it's reality.
And there's some boarded up areas, and you're not seeing either of the candidates talking at length about it. They both acknowledge it, but at the forum that Lisa was talking about, this came up in several questions, and both the candidates quickly kind of just used that to bounce off into more attacks against each other. So there's a subtext here, though, too, is that each of them represents some constituencies that are somewhat Democratic constituencies that are, there's some unrest here. So a lot of the labor unions have gone with Stanger because they're upset with Dooley over things. You've got a number of African-American officials in the county who are siding with Dooley. So there's this, they're trying to keep race from becoming an issue in the race, but there is a subtext. And after this primary is over, there's going to be some wounds that it's unclear if they'll be healed for the general election.
Okay, you brought up the other side of the ticket. Republicans are going to be deciding between two candidates as well. Break that down for us.
Well, it's State Representative Rick Stream of Kirkwood and Green Park Alderman Tony Pasosa. And I've termed it as a low-velocity primary because I think there was actually, a forum tonight, and I'm sure that Pasosa probably criticized some of Stream's votes, but Stream isn't really like attacking him back. He's basically trying to introduce himself to Republican voters and kind of just seeing what the result of this primary is going to be because there's a possibility if one candidate wins versus another candidate, some of those constituencies that Joe talked about, like organized labor, for example, if Dooley wins the primary, for example, they may consider either not working at all or possibly taking a look at Stream. So I think that's kind of what's going on.
And Stream would like to save his money, too, for the general election when he'll need it more.
Yeah, because Stream and Pasosa are both more conservative than the Democrats. But Stream, while he is conservative and has pretty much a classic conservative Republican, doesn't have the conservative persona per se. He comes from Kirkwood, which is more, considered a little more moderate. So there's a view among some major Republicans, most of whom are backing Stream. They want Stream to win this because they see Stream as potentially their best hope to take back the county executive's post. The Republicans held that post solid for decades until 25 years ago.
Right.
And so they see Stream as potentially their best hope to get it back. Now, Pasosa also has a constituency. A lot of Tea Party groups are behind him. But you're hearing that what they're concerned about, the Republicans, among other things, is that they're concerned about that many Republicans in the county may actually take a Democratic ballot.
Some crossing over.
And crossing over, because that's allowed in Missouri. And while there's always theories about how much of an impact that has, it's hard to tell because people don't register by party in this state. But there is some concern among Republicans that that might happen, and that could drive the Republican turnout even lower.
So after 2 decades, Republicans have a shot in November, you think?
It's hard to say. I don't know if Rick Streamer Pasosa is going to be the first Republican, since my friend Sean Milford's grandfather, H.R. Milford?
H. Milford.
H. Milford to be the county executive. But under the right circumstances, I think it could happen.
Do they have the money that the Democrats do? Or are
They don't now, but see, there's no term limit. I mean, there's no campaign donation limits in Missouri, so
Things could change very quickly.
Things can change overnight. You can have people giving you $1 million or $100,000, and that's already happening in some other races. So they'll get the money real quick.
And it all depends on how much Stenger and Dooley have to spend in these next few weeks before their primary.
Because they're going to have $0 basically on hand. They may be able to reload depending on who wins, but they might not.
2 quick questions, then we're going to transportation. Is this a hard race, regardless, for any incumbent to win when you consider the recession that we've been through and the fact that as Americans, we kind of like change after a certain amount of time sometimes?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, Mayor Slay has won a historic 4th term, so people obviously didn't want to change that particular administration.
Does the nastiness tell you anything about what they think internally?
Well, the nastiness tells you, I've seen some various polls, but none of them have been independent polls. But the nastiness tells you that it's close. Because usually an incumbent doesn't get as nasty on a challenger if they don't have to. Because they don't want to, impugn their image.
And as far as the recession, getting back to that, I don't know how many people are sitting there thinking, we had this terrible recession. It's the county executive's responsibility. I mean, not to say that they don't have a role in it, but, it's something that impacts every community.
But there has been these FBI investigations and some other things that have kind of, Dooley has not been accused personally of doing anything, but like any large government, you're going to have some things happen. And for him, unfortunately, several of those things have happened in the last year.
Okay, Jason.